Hi folks, this is Karim Rao from IT Visualizer channel. We will continue our lab, the Red Alert lab. I am awfully sorry guys, because I have said in the previous video that video number 86 will be the last video in the series, but actually I found a very useful document concerning securing a PAW, or which is called Privileged Access Workstation. This documentation was published by the US Department of Defense, and it is a very useful document we need to discuss. Although I have discussed before the PAW concept, how we can create a Privileged Access Workstation and what are the group policies to secure it, but this documentation contains a lot of useful and additional information. So I can give you a little hint about video number 86. In video 86 we have discussed how we can scan for vulnerabilities and make an audit report. Vulnerabilities, I mean system vulnerabilities for the Windows operating system and different programs, using a program provided by the Department of Defense of the United States, which is called SCAP, or Security Content Automation Protocol, and plus or in conjunction we will use another program called Security Technical Implementation Guide Viewer, which also is a program provided by the Department of Defense to view the technical documentation guides that they issue in a very proper and in a very organized way. We have discussed how we can use the two programs in conjunction. Please refer to my previous video. In this video we will discuss how we can secure a privileged access workstation based on the recommendations of the Department of Defense of the United States. Please refer to my videos concerning how we can create a PAW, or a privileged access workstation, and how we can secure it, because this will be like something to continue with. So you need to know how we can create a PAW and what is a PAW. I have discussed this in previous videos in my series, or in the Red Alert series. Please refer to it. So how we can get the PAW or the Privileged Access Workstation technical guide for the Department of Defense. Let me first give you a little bit of a graph, because this graph will help us deeply in giving you a little bit of a quick recap about what is the PAW. Okay, so I need to open a little bit of a PowerPoint presentation. Just wait for a moment guys, because it will take a little bit of time. So here guys, let me show you this graph and give you a little bit of a note about what we were talking about. So this is our Active Directory. Okay, we have tiers, or we have levels. Every level have its security setting. Okay, and to access anything related to the Active Directory or to troubleshooting workstations or servers, this should be done using PAW, or a Privileged Access Workstation. In every tier, on every level will have his own PAW, or Privileged Access Workstation. This Privileged Access Workstation will be used to connect to the Active Directory and do some administrative tasks, or to connect to normal workstations and do some administrative tasks also, like for example troubleshooting a problem or something like this. And administrative tasks also to the Active Directory, to create a user or create a group. This should be done using a PAW. A PAW is a very special workstation that is configured in a way that it is very secure against hacks and against malware. For example, one of the recommendations for the PAW, or the configurations for the PAW, it will not be connected to the internet. Okay, and it will get its Windows operating system updates and the antivirus updates from internal servers within your network. These internal servers can be connected to the internet. For example, the WSOS, which gets Microsoft Windows updates and push it to the PAW, so it can update its system, because we all know that updating the system is very critical to fix security bugs or security issues or security holes within the operating system or for different applications. As for the antivirus, there will be also an internal server that is connected to internet to get antivirus updates and push it to the PAW workstations. So this is a little bit of a brief what is a PAW. And actually every PAW in every tier will only connect to the workstations and servers within the tier. Okay, so it cannot, for example, PAW here cannot connect to workstations or servers in the American Army or in tier 2, for example. This is so tier 1. A PAW in tier 1 cannot access resources in tier 2 or tier 3, and the same applies for everyone. So let's see how we can secure our PAW or have additional security measurements done to the PAW. So let's see how we can first get these recommendations. So let's see, we need to go to the Department of Defense. Here it goes. This is the URL. You need to you can get the recommendation individually by downloading it from srgtig library list or completions, or sorry, you can get it from mailing list or strg mailing list, or you can get all of the recommendations in one file, which is 260 megabytes. So I prefer you all to download all of the recommendations from the Department of Defense concerning different operating systems all in one package. It is 260 megabyte and it is updated 23 of September 2022. It is recently updated, so you can see all of the updates that are reflected in the new technical guides from the Department of Defense. So let's download the file, and then we will use our STIG viewer program to open the recommendations from the Department of Defense to secure our PAW workstation. So it's a file, it's a zip file, it's about 260 megabytes, so we can download it. And then after finishing the download, we need to unzip the file, okay, and then use the STIG viewer program to open the recommendation of the Department of Defense concerning the PAW or securing the PAW workstations. Let's see how we can do this. So now we have downloaded the recommendation or the bunch of recommendations. We need to unzip it, okay, and then we need to open the STIG viewer program. This is the program, okay, and then we need to import the STIG package concerning securing Windows PAW workstations. So we need first to go to the file that we have unzipped from a couple of seconds. It's an important CD images, and then we need to tell him to arrange by date modified so we can get the recent file downloads. Here we can go to STIG version 7, okay, and then there is a lot of recommendations. You can see here a lot of recommendations for a lot of programs and operating systems. So I don't know the name, so I will tell him to search by PAW or the name of PAW. So I tell him to search through the files by PAW, and here we can see this is the recommendation: MS Microsoft Windows PAW version 2 R2 STIG. So this is the recommendations for the Department of Defense. Let's see what is a new recommendations that we can apply to our PAW workstation, in addition to what we have done before. Okay, so let's see. First, here it's 24 recommendations. So the first recommendation, here we can see the first thing here: the administrators of high value IT resources must complete required training. So he is saying here that all of your IT should have a very good knowledge about using the PAW and why we create a PAW. Okay, for example, we use it exclusively for remote administrative management of high value resources. So your IT should know that the PAW is a very special workstation that will be used to connect to sensitive and high value servers on your network. And you should also tell them why you are doing this, and tell him, for example, the graph that I have shown you earlier in my PowerPoint, why we need to make tiers in our network or make tiers in our Active Directory structure. and all of this should be known by the users. And for example, also you need to tell them that the PAW workstation should only be used for administrative tasks. This will not be used to, for example, read your email or browsing the internet. So you should do a training. This training can be, for example, using my lab as a reference for them. I'm not saying this because I am a little bit ego, or I am a bit or I'm saying this because my lab is, or I'm saying this because I am complimenting my lab. No, I think my lab have a lot of info. You can make it as a tutorial or as a reference for your new IT personnel on how they can use the PAW and what is the tiering of the Active Directory. So you should have a training. This is the first thing you need to do. You should train your IT about the use of the PAW, how they can use it, why they use it, and what are the resources that they can use to connect to using the PAW. So this is one of the things. And actually, this can be also a way that you can measure the performance of doing certain tasks through the PAW, because this is all of the administrative tasks will be done through a special workstation. Okay, so you can measure the performance of the administrative tasks. So let's go further and see. Okay, so here he's saying that, okay, he's saying that, for example, here you need to give them training modules, okay, concerning the use of PAW. Remotely manage high-value IT resources by PAW. Administrative accounts will not be used for non-administrative functions like reading the email and browsing. Okay, so this is the first thing. This is maybe a theoretical thing. It's not a practical thing to implement, but it is very effective and it is very important. Your IT should know when they can use the PAW. So this is one of the things you need to concentrate on. So let's continue. Okay, this is one of the things. Training update. Annual updating training modules for system administrators of high value, and for example, they should know what are the high value IT servers, so they can know that they are high value servers and they should use special workstations to connect to these high value resources or high value servers. So this is the first recommendation. This is a very theoretical thing, but it should be done. And then the next recommendation, that site IT resources designated by a high value by the authorizing office must be remotely managed only via privileged access workstation. So the privileged access workstation will not only be used in managing your internal resources, but this also can be used to manage cloud services or cloud resources. How this can be secure by allowing the firewall only to connect to a certain or the portal of the cloud service to manage your services, and this also can be controlled using the firewall. So you can tell the firewall to connect to special or to certain websites that you can manage them only, okay, or manage your resources through these portals. Okay, so he's saying you should also designate, or you should define what are your high value resources. For example, he's saying some examples: your Active Directory, your cloud services, identity management service. This is a service that is used to secure your users, okay, or to assign certain users to use certain resources. And privileged access management service, credential management service, security management service. So you should also use the PAW to connect to antivirus services or antivirus server, for example, any sensitive business, any other IT resources. So this is also another technical or theoretical thing. You need to define what are your high value resources, and you should connect to them using the PAW. And these are some examples of high value resources: directory service, these are the service of the Active Directory, the domain controller; cloud service, maybe the Azure; identity management service and privileged access management service. This also can be the Azure, these are Azure services also. because now everything is through the cloud. This can be Azure services or internal services, credential management service. All of these three, I think, are used now through Windows Defender endpoints. This is something like a software used through the Azure to do these three services: security management service, antivirus service, servers, any sensitive business mission, or any other services. So you should define what are your high value resources in your network, maybe internally or outside your network, and use the PAW to connect to them and control or secure the connection. If you are connecting to outside resources, you should secure the connection to outside resources. Okay, so your PAW will not be, for example, if you have your PAW only to connect to the cloud portal but not to connect to the internet in general, you need to specify what the PAW should connect to on the internet using your firewall. So this is one of the things. Some things need to be identified. For example, what is this identity management? Let me show you something here, because here, example, I didn't know what is identity management service, so I have searched the internet what is identity management service. So here is saying identity management service, organizational process for ensuring individuals have the appropriate access to technical resources. This is like controlling and specifying certain users to access certain resources. So this is done in Microsoft. Let me show you all another thing here where we can get it. So Microsoft Identity Management Service, here it's saying what is identity management in Microsoft. It is an on-premise tool that enables organization to manage access, users, policies, and credentials. This can be done internally or externally through the cloud using the Azure management service. Okay, so this is something new in the cloud, and also it is used internally. Okay, so this is one of the things. We can go further. What is identity? Microsoft Identity Platform helps you build application your users and customers can sign in to using their Microsoft identities or social accounts and provide authorized access to your own. Anyway, so this is something to control. Let me get further here. This is something to control. Again, 1 minute. Okay. So this is something to control the access of users to access to certain resources. One which is what is privilege management access service. Let me also have a little bit of a brief about it. What is privilege access management for Active Directory? Okay, he's saying it is a solution that help organizations restrict privilege access within an existing and isolated Active Directory environment. So here it is a solution used by an organization to restrict privilege access or the highly privileged access users. For example, the local administrators or domain admins restrict their access to certain servers, not to access, for example, normal workstations or other low level security device. So he's saying privileged access management accomplishes two goals: control over compromised Active Directory environment by maintaining a separate environment that is known to be unaffected by malicious attacks, by controlling what users to access or highly privileged access users to access certain resources, isolate the use of privileged accounts to reduce the risk of those credentials being stolen. So he will restrict the access of certain privileged accounts like the local administrators on the machines or the domain admins to access certain resources. Remember, we have done this using something called before a service called authenticator silo or authentication silo policy, and using something like group policies or other things. So this is one of the things what these are. I think this privilege access management and identity access management and credential management all are done through one portal or through certain portals, and this actually is done in an Active Directory environment, and this is done through the Azure environment. Okay, so you can do this to both cloud and internally. Okay, so it is then this is different. The PAM is different in on-premise locations, different than Active Directory privilege identity management through the cloud. Okay, so we are just concentrating on that certain services should be considered to be high value resources and should be accessed by the PAW. Okay, so it is something, or this is very brief about what is a PAM. Okay, so we don't need to know all of this. So this is something through the PAM. Okay, so let's continue with the recommendation. So here is saying okay, I think this is also anyway, so you can continue. Okay, he is saying this is review site documentation to confirm required the high value IT resources are remotely managed via a PAW. So you should have a documentation about what are the high value IT resources. There is a documentation and you should concentrate on using the PAW to connect to them. So this is a documentation part. The first recommendation to have training, and you can document this training, and the second recommendation is to have a documentation about the high value IT resources and to restrict on using the PAW to connect to them. So these are two recommendations based on documenting what you are doing. Okay, so this is a very good thing to do. Let's continue with the other recommendations. Okay, so this are two things. Maybe they are theoretical things, not practical thing to implement, but I think it's very important to stress on. Okay, so let's continue. Let's see the third recommendation. So as we see here, that STIG viewer let you view the recommendations in a very organized way. Okay, here the third recommendation saying administrative accounts of high value IT resources must be assigned to a specific administrative tier in the Active Directory to separate high privilege administrative accounts from less privileged administrative accounts. We have said this in managing or the structure. We have discussed this in this structure. You remember the PowerPoint presentation, we have said this before. So we have said this, that for example IT in tier 0, okay, cannot access resources in tier 1 or tier 2 or tier 3. Administrative IT or administrative accounts can only access resources in their tier, servers in their tier, workstations in their tier. The same for tier 1 and tier 2 and tier 3. To separate everyone or every IT to only manage their tier. Okay, and this to secure the tier, because if the account is stolen for tier 1, then the hacker can only hack tier 1 because he doesn't know the account or the IT account of tier 0. Okay, and this should make a partial or let you secure your network partially. He's saying this recommendation, every tier should be separated from the other tier. We have done this before in the beginning of the lab, so this recommendation is already in place and working. But he is giving you remember when I have done this structure, okay, when I was creating this structure in the Active Directory, I have done this in a manual way, or I have used scripts actually, but here he's giving you a script provided by Microsoft to create this structure one time. Okay, I have already created these structures partially, some of them by the script and other manually, but here is giving you some resources from Microsoft to create all of this structure by scripts one time. Okay, and giving you some group policies to implement, giving you some firewall rules to implement on the PAW. So basically what he is giving you, or what I am will give you now, these are some resources creating the PAW. He will create a structure for you to support using of the PAW, and some firewall rules to configure them, the PAW firewall or the Windows firewall for the PAW, and other things, proxy for the PAW. We have done this before actually, but I have these resources a little bit limited. I got it from a website, but this website was not giving me the whole data. So let me show you all what is the resources concerning, or the resources of Microsoft. So let's go further. So here let's continue and give you the resources again. here is saying that verify each administrator account and each PAW has been assigned to one and only one tier. So we have two things here. First of all, let me show you again. Here I have said this before, but it's stressing on this one. So what is stressing on? First, every IT in every tier should not access other resources in the other tier. This is number one. And number two, each administrator on any PAW workstation should not access resources only within the tier. So we have for here is saying, let me show you all what's saying here. That's saying that each administrator account and each PAW has been assigned to one and only one tier. So for example, the PAW on tier 1 should only access resources in tier 1. The PAW in tier 2 should only access resources in tier 2. PAW number 3 or in tier 3 should only access resources in tier 3. And the IT accounts here should not only the IT accounts or the PAW administrators cannot, or the administrators in every tier should not access other resources in other tiers using the PAW, of course, or any other means. But actually we have blocked any other means. Okay, we have block accessing by remote, desktop, or whatsoever. Anyway, so he's saying here that we should separate IT accounts for every tier from the other, and to let every PAW only manage their resources. Okay, so this is done. But let me show you all script that Microsoft had provided. Let me go further. So let me show you all what is this resource. So here we can see that he is telling you or configuring or giving you structure of the Active Directory. Here he is separating every tier. So every tier have its own accounts, OU, own groups, OU, own devices, OU. Have done this already, okay, in the beginning. So you don't need to do this. But if you need to do it for the first time, Microsoft gives you a little bit of a script to help you doing this. Okay, so let's go further and show you all where is it, where it is. So if you can go further again, let me go downside. So if you go further down, this is a link. Okay, it is not working actually, but this is a folder that contains some scripts that will help you create the Active Directory structure automatically. But I have searched the internet for this link, it's not working, so I have got it through GitHub, not through this website. Let me show you all how I have done this. So we can go further. So again, let me go further. So here, this is how I get the link of PAW media. So it's this file, it's not on the link of Microsoft, this is on GitHub, okay, because it's not there anymore on Microsoft. So I get it from GitHub. Here we can see this is a lot of scripts. We will see them one by one. Some scripts to create PAW groups, to create PAW OUs, to create to import the Active Directory module in the PowerShell, so you can connect to the Active Directory and create the OUs and groups. Okay, and this is proxy list, so you can configure the firewall to or your proxy to bypass some websites that the PAW can connect to. He's giving you some recommendations for some websites. OU delegation, so this is something also you can use, and this is how you can configure a proxy list using a group policy. This is the PAW firewall and some things. So let's see, we can download the file and then we can see one by one. Let's see one by one what are the what this file contains. So it's a zip file, contain these folders. So you can open it and unzip it. Just wait for a moment, guys. So let's continue, guys. Here we will unzip the folder, and let me have a little quick preview on the files contained in this folder. If we open the folder, we will see that there is a lot of scripts. The first script is to import the Active Directory PowerShell module in your PowerShell environment, so you can connect to the Active Directory and begin creating the different OUs and different groups. So this is the first thing this PowerShell module will do, and this is an Excel sheet. that this so let me get a little bit further. So this is an Excel sheet. This script used to create groups, so the group names and locations are in this Excel sheet, and this script will use this Excel sheet to see the location and the names of the groups and create them in the Active Directory. Okay, so we can have a look. Let me show you or have a look on this one. So here are the groups, okay, contained here. So we can see, for example, that here is saying that tier 0 replication maintenance, the members of this group are tier maintenance, so maybe these are administrators of tier 0. Server maintenance, these are administrators of tier 1. Service desk operators, these are normal IT, maybe in low tiers. Workstation maintenance, this is the local administrators on the PAW or local administrators on the workstations. Cloud admins, these are the admins that will connect, or cloud administrators. Okay, PAW users, these are the users that will use the PAW. So these are groups that you can control who can access the PAW workstation. PAW maintenance, this we will discuss later, that the PAW users, it is not an obligation that the PAW users should be local administrators. So the PAW local administrators are different than the PAW users. So for example, a domain admin or an IT can use the PAW to connect to the Active Directory, but he cannot install a program on the PAW workstation. So this is another account. Okay, tier 1 and tier 2. Anyway, these are the groups, okay, that will be created using a script. So let's me have a look on the scripts. So here we can see this is the description of every group. Let's go further and see the scripts. So here, for example, the first script is to import Active Directory module to your PowerShell environment. Okay, so this is very simple to know. Here he's installing RAS AD PowerShell, so he's installing the PowerShell module of the import Active Directory module. Add feature RSAT, or remote server access, or remote service terminal, I think, or something like this, PowerShell, to connect to the Active Directory remotely using the Active Directory module. Anyway, so this is the first script. Let's go to the second script, which is to create PAW groups. Okay, this is the something to create the PAW groups. Okay, so right click and edit. You can change them as you like. You can change the names, change the groups. So here we can see the first line is to import the Active Directory module to your PowerShell workstation using the first script that we have been viewing a couple of seconds ago. And then he read the groups.csv file to create the groups. So this is the second PowerShell script. Okay, and let's go to the third PowerShell script. So this is the groups, and then there is another script to create OUs. So this is the third one. Let me show you all. This is the third script, okay, to create OUs. The first one to create groups, the second to create OUs, and first thing you need to implement is to create the OUs, okay, and then create the groups, because the groups will be created in OUs, so the OUs should be created first. Okay, so this is also to import the AD environment, or to import the Active Directory module to your PowerShell environment, and then creating different OUs. You can rename them as you like, OUs and sub OUs. So this is something, for example, every tier will have admin groups, tier 1 servers or workstations, user accounts, computers. The same will be done for every tier. Okay, these OUs. So this is simple. You can see here that every tier will have accounts, groups, service accounts, devices, accounts, groups, service accounts, devices for every tier. Okay, so this is very simple. We have done this already in our environment, so you do not need to create it again. Okay, you can see or change what you like. For example, tier 0 maybe contain or tier 1 may contain applications or database or whatsoever, so the OU differs, or it will differ upon your structure or your network structure. Okay, so, and we see this is a firewall rules imported. You can import it to your PAW firewall. We have done this before, and this is a proxy list. Also, this you can through a group policy to let the browser connect to certain websites. So this is a list of the sites that the Department of Defense recommend you or your browser to connect to. For example, Office 365 portal to manage your emails, maybe OneNote or something. So through this list of websites, you can configure your browser to let you connect to them using this group policy template. Okay, and this is a delegation, another delegation of OUs or the PAW who can manage the OU that contains the PAW. This also should be related to every IT in every tier. So this is a PAW delegation. You should also take that into consideration. We have done this already, okay, in the lab. So we can edit the OU delegation. Here we can see that he is setting some I think some things here. I think we can go further. Okay, I think here is delegating some things actually. Anyway, so these are a way to create your Active Directory tiering structure using pre-made scripts. Okay, so you can use them, okay, provided by Microsoft. It is not there anyway in aka.so, so it's in GitHub. Okay, so we can go further and we can control and get further more because we have already done this. So we can continue. So no, we can continue further more. We can continue again. So we have already done this recommendation. Let's go to the second recommendation. Okay, so we have done this recommendation showing you how we can limit administrator accounts to certain PAW workstations. A PAW must only be used to manage high value IT resources assigned to the same tier. We have done this before, but there was something here. We have said that the PAW should only be used to connect to high value resources. So what about when the IT needs to check his email or access the internet? I have said before through the graph, okay, that I am telling you that this should be done using another workstation. It should be only dedicated to normal operation, and another PC dedicated for administrative tasks, for example, solving problems or workstations on servers, and another PAW for accessing the Active Directory. So we have 3 PAWs to access different or to be dedicated to different things. One to access the Active Directory, one to do the normal process of seeing the emails and browsing the internet, and the other for solving problems remotely on the tier workstations or servers. Okay, this actually you don't have a lot of resources, so it's telling you if you have only one PAW, you can create another 2 workstations virtually on this PAW and use it for other tasks. For example, you can on the PAW, okay, create a virtual machine to connect to your email and to browse the internet, and this is secure because your virtual environment is separated from your original environment, okay, or your physical environment. So he is saying that in very short terms. Okay, so he's saying here that let's see here, if you have constrained numbers of available workstations, lower tier high value admin accounts can operate in a VM if the higher tier admins operate in VM hosts. Anyways, he's saying here in short terms that you can access low tiers, okay, from virtual machines. Okay, so this is one of the things also said in this recommendation. So he's saying here an applicable approach. He's saying not allowed or allowed exception for sites that are constrained in number of available workstations. An acceptable approach is to install lower tier administrative accounts. You have an account that doesn't have any rights, for example, to access with it a workstation to check your emails and your internet things. Lower tier administrative accounts on a separate virtual machine on the PAW workstation, where higher tier administrative accounts are installed on the host OS. So you use the PAW normal OS to connect to high value resources or servers, and use a virtual machine to connect to low or to do lower administrative, or to let the lower administrative accounts do standard things like accessing the internet and checking your email. So this is something very, very simple to do, and this is acceptable. Okay, so we can continue. Okay, there can continue more. Okay, and he's saying another thing: if administrative accounts assigned to different tiers were installed on the same PAW, it would be impossible. So he's saying every PAW should connect to its tier resources. Okay, so we can do this, and then I think he's doing the same here. He's saying the same recommendation and he's repeating it again. So let's go to the second thing. I think let's continue. Let's go further. Okay, must be assigned to specific administrative tier to separate. So he's saying what I was saying before, that every IT should in every tier should not connect to the other IT resources or tiers. Okay, and there is a recommendation, or there is some document concerning administrative setup, administrative tier model. So here is another URL on how to connect or how to create an Active Directory tier model, tier 0, tier 1, tier 2. We have done this before, and we have used this recommendation or this graph before. So we have done this before, so we can bypass this recommendation. Okay, the next recommendation is to configure a vendor supported version of Windows 10 and applicable patches on it. So for example, there is a lot of Windows 10 versions. The Windows 10 was issued or was published in 2015. Some Windows 10 versions are not used anymore, or it's not supported anymore. So you should not install unsupported Windows 10 operating system on your PAW. Your PAW should have the latest and approved and supported versions of Windows 10 installed on your PAW. Okay, and it should be patched by the latest security patch. Okay, so you should have an approved version or a supported version by Microsoft. We have a lot of versions. The latest Windows 10 version is 22H2. Okay, and it is very new. You can, I think 22H1 or 21H1 is still supported, but you need to see the life support cycle for the different Windows 10 versions. We have discussed this before in a previous video. So this is one of the recommendations. Okay, you should have a supported version. Okay, and the next recommendation: a Windows update service must be available to provide software updates for the PAW platform. So we have said that the PAW will not connect to the internet. So the security system updates will be pushed to the PAW, not from the internet, but from an internal server that is connected to the internet, which is the WSOS or Windows Server Update Service. You should have a server like that, not only to update the Windows, but to update different operating systems. You should have the third-party software that will update also the programs that are not Microsoft products. So for example, the WSOS will push updates related to the Microsoft products. But what about the non-Microsoft products? There is third-party utilities that you can use to push update for non-Microsoft updates. There is Manage Engine product, there is SolarWinds Patch Manager, something like this. And actually not only the Windows updates, but the antivirus definition updates. This also should be pushed to the PAW because it's not accessing the internet. So this is one thing also. Let's continue. WSOS, and here he's saying that the updates on your PAW should not be installed automatically. You should install it by yourself. So there is an option auto download and schedule the install. So here is saying that the updates on the PAW or the Windows updates on the PAW should not be installed automatically. You should be informed as an administrator of the PAW about these updates, and you should be aware of them. So it will only be downloaded, and you will be informed to install them manually. So this is an option to be configured through a group policy. Windows updates, tell him auto download and install, and schedule the install, and you should install it by yourself. And through this group policy, you will define the WSOS server URL that this PAW will connect to get the update. So this is very very simple to do. Okay, let's continue. And other recommendation: the PAW must be configured so that all non-administrative related applications and functions are blocked from the PAW platform, including not limited to email, internet browsing, and line of business applications. So when you have created the PAW, remember that I didn't install Office applications, or didn't install Outlook or something. So he's saying that the PAW should not contain any non-administrative related applications, something like the Office, something like the email, something like the browsers to browse the internet. We have said that the PAW should be blocked from accessing the internet. Okay, so you can block non-administrative applications, like for example the Outlook and similar products, using the firewall, or you can remove the non-administrative applications completely from the PAW. So you can do this. We have seen that we can do this through the firewall. You can do this through App Locker. We have done this through the App Locker. You can block non-administrative applications like the email and internet browsing or browsers through the App Locker. We have done this in a previous video. So this is also one of the things. The PAW should only be used to access administrative applications, something like the Active Directory console, something like PowerShell to do some things on the Active Directory, something like this. Okay, so this is also one of the things that should be noted. Okay, not to allow PAW to have non-administrative applications on them. Okay, or to block them. At least if you have them, you can block them, but it is from the first start, I think you should remove these applications. Okay, so except if you are accessing a cloud admin, or you are a cloud admin or an Azure admin, so you should have a browser. Okay, so this is one of the things that you should do. Okay, Abstractable approach to install non-administrative services on a separate virtual VM. So we have said this before, to use the non-administrative applications on a virtual machine. Okay, using a low administrative account. Okay, so this also can be done, or you can block them as a whole. Okay, you have the option to choose. So I will stop here at the device guard integrity policy. This is something you should use to restrict accessing non-administrative applications and to secure your applications. Okay, so we will stop at this recommendation. This is the recommendation number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is the recommendation number 9. We'll discuss this in the upcoming video. Okay, here is saying that device guard is enforcing a code integrity policy to restrict authorized applications. So this will control your access to certain authorized applications on the PAW. So we'll discuss this in the upcoming video. Okay, so we'll stop there at this recommendation. So we will continue later. Hope this video was in front of you all, and thank you all for viewing. Thank you so much.